Good morning. It's so nice to see everybody here, and welcome to our friends that are here via Zoom. As you can see, this is a budget forum with the Westchester County Board of Legislators. We are so thrilled to welcome them and to thank them for all of their hard work during a most difficult time. We are also extremely thankful to the event sponsors, the Westchester Library System, to Kate and to Rob. You just make everything so easy. We are so lucky to have the Westchester Library System as a partner in all that we do. We are especially thankful to Strategic Services and Arnie Linhart for also supporting this event. Mike, do I go up or down on the keyboard? Down. Here is a great picture of our very esteemed County Board of Legislators. Welcome. Nonprofit Westchester is as strong as its members. And for those of you who are here today, and those of you who are here via Zoom, we thank you for all the work that you have done, the incredible work you have done over the past 2 years and every day. We thank you for fortifying our agency and the work that we do together. Again, our sponsors, so grateful to you as well. To our organizational sponsors, we are really thankful to the business community for realizing the critical importance of the nonprofit sector in keeping us economically and emotionally stable and thriving every day. Today is with the County Board of Legislators. On the 21st, we will be welcoming the county executive here to this room. And we hope you all can attend either in person or via Zoom as well. If you are not a member, why not? Please consider joining. So Nonprofit Westchester has been very busy. We have been very busy preparing our recommendations for the American Rescue Plan Act funding, which you will see here. We've been very busy implementing and acting upon our 2021 policy agenda, and we look forward to advocating in 2022 for issues that impact the entire sector. I'm not going to go through everything, but what I'm going to say for 2022, we are of course going to support all our members and the critical issues that they address. And we are going to focus on macro issues that impact the whole sector. What COVID has shown is that nonprofit organizations are drastically underfunded. Our workers doing the same jobs, either for government or for the private sector, are drastically underpaid and their benefits are really abysmal. We've done a study in housing and we have found out that while 40% of residents countywide are housing burdened, 60% of nonprofit employees are housing burdened. And if you apply that to direct care staff, primarily women and people of color, those people are 70% housing burdened. People that provided essential services during the pandemic and every day. So we know that this is not on government alone. We know that we have to partner as nonprofits, and we look forward to doing that now and in the future. I'm going to take my seat, and our legislators are each going to have 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes to talk about what their priorities are for 2022. And then we are going to get questions from the audience. Some of our legislators do have other events that they have to attend. So please excuse them if they have to leave a couple of minutes early. It's not because they don't want to be here. It's because, like everyone else, they're really busy. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone. What a nice turnout. I'm just going to take this down while I speak. First of all, the Board of Legislators is very pleased that you've invited us to be with you this morning to talk about the upcoming 2022 budget. Can you believe we're already that close to the process? As we look forward to 2022, we will have to make sure that we address the human needs, whether that be food insecurity, whether it be transportation, housing, health issues, both physical and mental. We've got to make sure we take care of the transportation needs. There are just so many things that we have to do. And I bundle that together in human needs. Then you've got the infrastructure. We saw what Ida did to especially the southern part of Westchester County. Got to address that. The pandemic laid bare that communities of color, especially, broadband is a tremendous problem. You can't learn if you don't have the internet. And even if you have it, learning may be an issue, but without it, you will not and cannot learn. So that's another area that we must focus on. At the county, we'll all be focusing on our information technology. We'll also be looking at our health department and all, because without our health department, they did a phenomenal job, as many other departments throughout the county. And I'm pleased to say that this Board of Legislators did not miss a meeting. We immediately pivoted to virtual, online, and we continued to do the business and serve the people of Westchester County. We put out more e-newses last year than I think we've done in the previous 3 or 4 years. We were putting them out at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. I was reading them before they went out. So we have been working for the people of Westchester. The other thing that is important is that we are in partnership with you. Government cannot do it all. We must partner, especially with the nonprofits. You are very close to the people. We have been your partners and we will continue to be your partners. I will stop there.
Okay, I agree with everything that Ben said. And I will just emphasize that last point that, I think the nonprofits are, an extension of government. I mean, we really can't do those things that you do without you, and we really need to do those things. They're really critical aspects of government. So I think that it's wonderful that we do have a good partnership and that there are so many really terrific nonprofits. And I'll just say for NPW, I think, I'll put in a plug for them. I mean, I think they provide so much really important information for everyone. And I thought, the affordable housing piece was really, really interesting and really, really important to point out that, because people still really don't understand about affordable housing, that it's really, for probably 80% of the people in the county at some level, could benefit from that. And anyway, so I really appreciate that the work that you all do. And it's always very hard to prioritize because everything that you do is important, right? So we can't, when we have to decide, okay, well, we'll put this money here, we'll put that money there, it's really difficult. But I think there are some things, obviously, that always have to come first, food, of course, and housing. And housing, we have there's a lot of different ways of attacking that. And one is right to counsel for people who are in possibly going to be evicted. And we've been working on that for a few years, but I think we finally now will have a county-wide right to counsel program that will be largely funded by the county. So I think that's, going to be super helpful going forward. I think we need to move forward with affordable housing plans. And I will say the thing that I probably will be pushing the most is something that Ben mentioned, and that is mental health. I mean, the mental health piece is still so unsung. We know how much it affects people in every single sector. We know it's so much worse because of COVID. And we know it's really hard to get access and it's hard to pay. And we just need a lot more services in mental health. And we need to make it something that we just talk about all the time. It's just got to be just like we talk about everything else, we have to talk about mental health. And so I've been trying to do that, and I will continue to do that. And let's certainly support any programs that, that will help us tackle that really difficult problem.
Thank you, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I am one of the legislators who has to leave early because I am chairing the Families Task Force meeting, which many of the organizations in nonprofit for Westchester actually sit on the Families Task Force. And I'm here. I've worked in government for 20 years. This is my 20th year working in government, 10 years at the county board. And I think this is the first time that I'm able to say this, which is that our budget is actually not in bad shape. It's always tough decisions and there'll always be jockeying, but we are at a stage right now where we can start looking at things that we always said we would like to do this when things get a little bit better. I've been chairing the budget committee for the past 4 years. We've had a remarkable turnaround thanks to partnering with our wonderful county executive on making the decisions that needed to be made pre-COVID to sort of turn the ship of state around. And then during COVID, even though it was the most difficult time to be in public service, it was also the best time to be in public service because it was the time when people needed government the most help. It was also a time for us sort of infrastructure wonks where we were actually able to get a lot of work done for myriad reasons, including the fact that people weren't on the roads and also money is cheap for now. For this week, perhaps next week, not so much. There's a bigger picture events that impact that, of course. But so for me, this is going to be the most exciting budget season because this is the time when things that many of us have been working on for a long time, like the cost of healthcare, like the cost of childcare, like the fact that our housing needs assessment, which we had to fight to do, and showed very, very, very clearly that Westchester's not economically sustainable if our housing costs continue to be such a high portion of the costs that our residents and families have to pay. 60% is a horrifying number, but 40% is also quite a bad number. When people have to pay too much for their housing costs, they don't have money to put in the local economy. And we come up with this sort of stratified society that we're already somewhat in, where we have the very wealthy and then everybody else. And that just does not work. It does not work for our economy. It does not work for our mental health. It does not work for our children's future. So this is going to be a time when we're going to have to really work together to figure out some things, to figure out how we're going to plant the seeds for future prosperity and future corrections of issues that we've had for a really, really, really long time. Some of you might know that I've actually just taken a job 3 months ago as the head of a non-for-profit in Westchester. And so I'm actually a member now from that side, Clearview School, which is a school that serves developmentally, emotionally disabled children. So mental health is obviously big on the radar too. And one of the things I've learned in my 3 months is that mental health does impact every family. I mean, I knew that from my own family, but really the impact of mental health can really be quantified. I am I'm a very strong policy person. I always like to look at everything through the numbers. And when you look at the cost of mental health to our community, it's really
returned up.
So
Oh,
we're
that's
finally in a
impossible. I
place where we
looked at
can
my
maybe
bank.
do some good for some of the things that we've known have been around for a while. So anyway, looking forward to the budget season. It's exhausting, but we'll do some good together.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you all for being here and inviting us. So I'm Damon Marr. I represent Tuckahoe, Eastchester, and most of New Rochelle. Also on Catherine's Budget and Appropriation Committee, and I'm the chair of the Labor and Housing Committee. I just want to amplify a little on what Catherine has said. We are in good shape budget-wise. Reason being, greater than expected sales taxes under the new equalized sales tax that's uniform now throughout the county. Also the federal aid, which we are going to parse out wisely. We have 4 years to draw on most of that. So that is there. What we're going to do with it. First of all, our taxpayers, most of which I assume many or not most of you are, deserve some sort of dividend. So I think we're going to have another cut on the county property taxes this year. We have to put some more back in our rainy day fund to satisfy the bond rating companies, which have been very supportive of our efforts so far, which is important to keep those interest rates as low as possible on our long-term bonding for infrastructure and other needs. And then human needs. Yes, please don't be shy this year. Be aggressive. And there are those of us who will push for you for what you're asking for this year. My specific priorities, again, housing. Every year we have $20 million in our capital budget to incentivize developers to do affordable housing, to do above and beyond what particular municipalities require, so that we get more of these in real neighborhoods, not off, in some sort of old style housing project out on the edge of town, including diversity within the buildings as well as within the neighborhood. I should have mentioned my district. It may be one of the more diverse districts, certainly politically, as well as ethnically and based on income. So I'm very sensitive to that, to complete communities. And we have even, I think we're about to overdraw on the $20 million spending this year. So we go into we do budget amendment to go into next year's budget. So I'm hoping maybe we'll be able to put even more money into these programs that aid private developers in building more affordable housing. My other passion is early childhood education and daycare. We really have to help. Kathy Hallis is here, push for as much as possible. We have, coming out of the pandemic, a lot of the daycare providers, well, a lot of them went out of business. We need to support them, bring them back as quickly as possible. And we have to help the working families as well that are clients of the daycare centers. Again, coming out of the pandemic, it's impacted jobs and ability for people to get to work, especially women, very much so. So we're going to help Kathy and push as much as we can for more money for that. And then finally, the mental health aspect is something I got involved with as part of the policing task force, so that as part of what we call policing, we will be stressing and training 911 operators to divert more of the calls to that if they assess after much training, the 911 operators will be assessing whether something can be handled by these new mental health response units rather than the police, which is a good thing. And we have to back that up with the resources once we find people who are having these emotional and psychological crises, especially a repeat basis, which I understand is quite a number of the calls that the police are handling right now, that we have the backup long-term to place folks in the kinds of programs and housing that they need. And thank you again for having us.
I'm next.
Yeah, you're not.
I probably shouldn't be next. There are better speakers out there. Hi, Vidak Gashi. I'm one of the newer legislators. I was elected last year, representing Yorktown, Somers, and Newcastle. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to take part and have this part is fun, but I know most of what they have to say. I'm excited to see what you all have to say. In terms of my priorities, as the chair of Public Works and Transportation, my focus has been, and things I've seen the most is have been mostly involving infrastructure. And I think we have sincere need there, and we have, as they mentioned, cheaper money right now. Bond rates are lower right now. We have the ability to invest in our infrastructure, and if we could do so in a way that improves Westchester, but also does local provides local jobs at good wages, I think that's good for all of us. On the environment, we've been working to continue our transition from gas and diesel to an electric fleet, improve our parks, and protect our green space. And of course, during this pandemic, we've had a lot of issues highlighted and a lot of needs. Some people talk about the needs that were made evident, or sometimes it sounds like they were created by the pandemic among different communities. But obviously, a lot of these issues existed before. The pandemic had a way of highlighting and maybe exacerbating as well, but highlighting the areas where we had the greatest need. One of the things that I found instructive is among my colleagues, especially, we care and we want to help. When we were looking where and how we would allocate that money, one of the things was food, and we delivered food. And at the end, we had a discussion about giving more money to food pantries. But the thing we found from talking to food pantries, and it was specific colleagues that probably should deserve particular credit. I remember Katherine Parker being one of those conversations. I think a number of others, including Katherine Parker. And what we found was, at the time, food pantries actually had plenty of food. And while that's a noble goal and deserves attention, there were other areas where people were underserved that could use more help, like childcare. And I think for that reason, and I won't pretend to have come up with it, I was here for it and supportive of it. But childcare, when we have a stronger budget and we have an ability to we're not cutting corners. Where can we add? We decided to add to the childcare budget. And again, it's a shame that I'm talking about it. I think Katherine Parker and others should be talking about it, because this has been their work for a long time. But I think, especially as the new guy, I feel like it's my job almost to listen and to learn. You'll know the communities you serve better than I do. So I'm happy to be educated on them. There are a lot of difficult questions. I can tell you, and maybe just to close, I'm an Albanian American. We were immigrants. I moved to this country when I was 4. And my family, I'm a lawyer now. My family had a bit of success. We were able to have a more secure and safer experience. During the pandemic, one of the things I found, and one of the things I looked out for actively, was how can I help the Albanian American community? There's a bunch of people out there I know that are struggling and have a really hard time. The thing I found was that community is a proud community. They don't like admitting that they need the help. So when I spoke to communities and to people that I know had real issues, including with food, they would tell me, no, we're good. We're fine. Don't worry about it. Worry about something else. And while I admire and I find cute that sentiment, the idea that a child would go hungry because people were too proud to accept it is something that's really hard for me to stomach. So that's a continuing challenge for me, something that I would like to better address. And again, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm eager to hear what you all have to tell me.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone here and watching online. I'm Ruth Walter. I'm Westchester County Legislator for District 15. That's North Yonkers, East Yonkers, and the Village of Bronxville. And just like Vidat, my colleague said, I'm one of the new ones, and we have learned over the past year and a half how incredibly important it is that the nonprofit and the government sector work together. We could say you guys are the mortar, we're the bricks. You're flexible, you're passionate, you're connected to your communities, and we want to build this great county together. My past experience with helping out nonprofits and including, amplifying your message and getting out information about the services that you offer. We did put money in to support libraries in my district. We did a big focus on Black maternal health, helping address this crisis. Black women are 3 times more likely than white women to die in childbirth. We need to fix that. And now we did a lot of community gardens across my district, again, North Yonkers, East Yonkers, and the village of Bronxville. What we're trying to do together is to listen to the needs of the nonprofit sector. You are very connected to the communities that you serve, and we as the board, we support you, and we want to be able to amplify the needs. And things change. One of the things I've learned as a new legislator is, and I know you know this, there's a new program and the deadline is November 30th, or there's new funding, and these are the people that are qualified for it. And that complexity and that understanding of how things are changing in the county, the state, the federal government is really important, that we work together as a partner and get that message out to you. You can get the message to us sometimes. We really do work well together. And I just want to say just a general view. I'm a small business owner, and I've done this now as a legislator for just under 2 years. Investing in people benefits the economy. Right. So we all in this room understand that, and I think watching as well, but we need to get that message out, investing in schools, in youth job training, in housing, and in healthcare. And that is how we build our economy. It is really important that we look at people as investments and go forward to help those who need a hand up. And I'll just close with the story of a single mom in England who I think was going to the local drugstore to get free diapers, right? Because that's what they provide. And she was on the dole for so long. And of course, it's J.K. Rowling's, right? So she then went on to become a huge benefactor for the entire country and lots and lots of economic activity. So, when we talk about diapers, we talk about helping women, with their children, we are investing in the future. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth. I'm Mary Jane Shimsky. I represent the 12th Legislative District, which includes the southern 2/3 of the town of Greenburgh, the river villages of Hastings, Dobbs Ferry, Irvington, Ardsley, the Edgemont School District, and most of Hartsdale. All of these priorities are so important, and we really do have to run the table. We cannot pick and choose among our children. These are all needed. But the one thing I would like to talk the most about is you can have the best mental health services in the world. You could have the best childcare. You could have everything. But if people keep getting flooded out of their homes and businesses, it's not going to mean a damn. Excuse the pun. Ida has shown us that the next phase of climate change is probably upon us. And you don't have to spend long looking at a map to see that Westchester County is a great big funnel from the Catskills to the Atlantic Ocean. And we know that people died in flooding in Westchester County. We know that there were a number of people in basement apartments who almost died. Your clients, your employees, in many cases you, lost your cars, which are critically important to get around anywhere around here. Many people lost everything in their basements if they had single family homes. Many people lost all their possessions in their apartments. From a mental health, a physical health, any other perspective, we've got to get the best handle on this that we can, which means that we are going to have to make big investments in climate resiliency. And all of us, public sector, private sector, not-for-profit sector, are going to have to think more strategically whenever we move into a new location, whenever we try to make improvements, whenever we rebuild, about how we are going to minimize the damage as the years and the decades go by. I tend to be the legislator who focuses most on the capital budget. And I know we are going to have to make big investments this year in our stormwater management program. We give matching grants to municipalities to solve localized flood problems. I know that in my district, there has been a lot more interest in that program. I hear from other legislators that that's also true in other parts of the county. We're going to have to do that. Obviously, there's going to have to be a lot of repairs that are going to have to be done. We know that housing was really, really short and really, really dear pre-Ida. Post-Ida, it's going to get worse. And I think that we are all going to have to sit down and strategize about what we in our individual little powers can put together to make sure that, as I said, our clients, our employees, and ourselves are able to live and work in this county. That's the immediate piece for us locally. In terms of the larger piece, what can we do to get climate change, hopefully under some measure of control? The county has done a lot in terms of moving our vehicle fleet from diesel and regular internal combustion engines to hybrids to electric. We need to look more closely, and all of you need to look more closely, and we need to do it together, as to how we are powering our buildings and our lighting, our heating, all of it. Because the most energy efficient energy there is the energy you don't have to use in the first place. And that will help all of you and all of us cut down on our energy costs, which are a significant part of everybody's budget. And at the same time, it will help moderate the need we're going to have for everything I talked about in the first part of my talk. So thank you for listening, and let's make sure that we keep these issues in the forefront as we move forward.
Good morning. I'm Katherine Parker. I represent the 7th District of Westchester. So my communities are Rye, Village of Mamaroneck, Town of Mamaroneck, Village of Larchmont, a little bit of New Rochelle, and a little bit of Harrison. And if my first few communities didn't make you think of flooding, you got to come and visit me. It is devastating what has happened in my district because of Ida. And to the point that we know that we need to focus on helping our communities fund needed flood mitigation. Good news, and thanks to all of you, you signed a letter to our federal delegation for the Army Corps of Engineers project to help the Village of Mamaroneck. And last night it was announced that Chuck Schumer has been able to get the Office of Management for Budget to move that. It is going to start construction, which is great. So thank you. But here's what it will cost just Westchester County alone. So for the latest fact sheet on the project, $88 million for that project. Our share, and as Legislator Shimsky mentioned, we have a matching fund. So our share to help communities come up with the local amount is going to be $11 million. That's county money, $11 million. And you know that each year when you come to see us for the budget, We're trying to scrape together, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars for all the great work that you're doing. There's no way that this is, you know, that this $11 million is not negotiable. We just have to do it. And we have to do it because all the things that you have all been fighting for, affordable housing, equity in our society, all those things, when you see it washed away during Ida, when you see the poorest people most affected, when you see that those poor people are primarily Black and brown people, you know that that's an issue of environmental justice, and we just have to do something about that. We just can't let that, we can't rebuild in the same area. All the good work done by Washingtonville Alliance, a great nonprofit in our community, it's going to have to be rethought. We've seen that area flood out 3 times in 14 years with a quote unquote 100-year storm. I don't believe that that actually applies anymore. It's not 100 years. And it is truly, truly an issue that we have to grapple with right now. So I will go back to your original point before you turn the microphones off to us, when we talked about affordable housing and how all of you who do the great work that you do, which I have always felt that, you know, we have to just find the money and help you get your work done because it is so invaluable to us. When you can't afford to live here, I get it. That's a problem. And we have to ask ourselves, why isn't county government, why isn't government doing what all of you are doing? Why is it that we are in a place where you are trying to find means to actually have a reasonable standard of living? And there's something wrong with that when we're not really good partners. And so I want to be a better partner. I think we all believe that the work that you do is invaluable. I think we have to stop pretending that you don't deserve a reasonable standard of living as well. And many of you are really struggling. So I would like to see that addressed in the 2022 budget. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Can everybody hear me? Great. So I'm going to invite people up from the audience if they have questions. Also, we're going to be very flexible here. I'm going to invite the legislators to answer the questions, and I'll try my best to moderate that. So does anybody from the live audience have a question or even a statement that they would like the legislators to hear? Carla? Yes. And we do have wipes. If you want to wipe the microphone in between speakers, you can do that, or just stand back.
All right. Carla Horton, the Executive Director of Hope Store, and of course, a proud member of nonprofit Westchester. When I've listened to your statements, certain things that you've amplified, I'd like to amplify a little more. And it's 2 things. And I think many of us would say this. There's what it is, the work we do for victims of domestic violence and to work on preventing it, and who performs that work that saves lives every day. And the needs of my victims, if you would, often match the needs of my staff. You talk to victims and they'll say, I need to get a job. I can't get a job if I don't have daycare. If I get a job and I want to leave him, I can't afford the rent. Over here, I have employees who are making in the low 40s, twice as much as some of my sister agencies represent, right? That are living at home with mommy and daddy. It's ridiculous. In the last 2 years, I've lost 6 out of 8 advocates at a time that we're partners on a county-wide task force called High Risk, Westchester County Domestic Violence High Risk Team. As soon as I get one of my advocates trained, what do y'all do? You post a job at the county that not paying 40 to 45,000 a year after some years. No, you posted at 60, 62 to $72,000 range. God bless the person who could make that, because that's pretty much what you need. So my victims are needing this help. My staff is needing this help. My victims need affordable housing. My staff needs affordable housing. Y'all need health care. We're partners on everything. We work with so many people here. We partner with Open Door Family Medical. We partner with PACE. We partner with Kathy Hollis at Childcare. It all is part and parcel. And I'm not looking to lower salaries of people who work for the county. God bless them. But to continue to try to do this work without enhanced support is extraordinarily difficult. And then kind of overarching all of that is, the more I get from you, the more I can get from the feds. When the feds give me money, it comes with a 20% match. If you're not there, then they're not there. And we're caught in this cycle. So housing, childcare, healthcare, mental health, people I serve, they have a lot of PTSD. They have a lot of mental health problems. There is probably not an organization in the room or in your membership that doesn't provide support to either the people we serve or those serving them. So we're going to be looking to you to do your best, and we'd be more than happy to tell you how much that could be. Thank you. Yes, Legislator Borgia.
Yeah, so I know I'm sort of preaching to the choir here, but one of the things that we are constrained by when we put together the budget is that we are not allowed to pay directly people's salaries. However, money that goes towards program costs then frees up money in your organization to increase the human costs. There's a little technical caveat to that, which is if part of a person's salary you can attribute directly to a program that we are able to fund, we can pay for that. So it's just a little piece of advice about how you craft your asks. We agree with you on all of the needs. We know that that is the case. But we are also, general municipal law in New York State applies to us as well. So we have to craft what we can do in the way that gives you the most flexibility. So when you're coming to us, and I encourage you all to come to us, your individual legislators and us as a caucus through the Majority Leader, Mary Jane Shimsky, with your asks, just remember that. So that's a little bit of budget advice.
Thank you for that. I do want to add that nonprofit Westchester will be proposing a task force in collaboration with government to address how we raise nonprofit wages in government contracting for 2022. So we do understand that there are things that the nonprofit sector has to do as well. We have been incentivized to compete with and against each other, and we want to try to reduce that in collaboration with county government. Does anybody else want to address that question?
Yes. Yes. That it just seems as if it never stops these days.
There we go. The clumsiest person doing the biggest physical work. One thing I do want to say is this on? Yeah, okay, okay, good. The need to pay not-for-profit employees a living wage is a very important issue, as is everything else that was raised here. But one thing I do want to say is there is going to be more play in the budget than we've had in quite some time. However, these needs, when you add them all up, suddenly make that look like not such a easy budget anymore. We are not going to be able to get everything on the strength of the extra money that's coming in this one budget. So we are going to have to think strategically about what we can fund, how we should fund it. I think the idea of a task force to do some strategic thinking about how we work this, because we all know the reason why so much during a certain administration that will currently remain nameless, the reason why so much of the work that used to be done by county employees devolved to you was on the assumption that the county could get away with paying you less. That's a problem. And we have to talk about, and we have to bring in other partners as well. We should bring in the state. We need to bring in municipalities. We need to bring in our other local institutions, universities and the like. But we are not going to solve all the problems of the world, even with the money we have coming into this budget. And we have to be selective, we have to be strategic, and we have to spend the money in the way that will create the greatest good for the greatest number.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Majority Leader Shimsky. Just let me say that I think the task force is a phenomenal idea. But also we're getting, as they say on the farm, in the short rows. The capital budget comes out on the 15th of October, November 10th. I think that will be the date. We get the operating budget, the county executive proposed operating budget. The 11th will close because that's Veterans Day. Probably starting the 12th, Legislator Borgia works and sets up the budget process. We will start probably from then until December 3rd, setting up meetings. So if you want to have a task force, I would suggest that you get it. You may want to talk to the county executive. I think he said 2 weeks from now or something like that, because I think those things need to be out there as the budget is being formulated and put together. December 6th is our ads day. December 7th is our public hearing on the budget. And then we expect to vote on that. Well, we got December 10th, the lead day, and then December 13th will be the target date to vote on the budget. So just wanted to kind of give you the kind of the timelines for what we're looking at here. So, but I think an idea of a task force is very important.
I actually was just texting because I don't have it to remember off the top of my head when the other budget hearing is. So we have two budget
Yeah,
hearings.
we don't know when they do.
We are going to do, the one that is prescribed by the charter, and then we have another one where we probably won't be doing it over Zoom because of restrictions, but where it's very, very, very helpful. One of the things I want to say is, from the beginning of the process,
Banking account.
and supporting each other is very, very, very effective. Thank you. Anyone else in the live audience? Seth, then, is that Meg? Seth, then Meg.
Hi, Seth Diamond from Westchester Jewish Community Services. Thank you all for your remarks and for being here. And I just to follow up on what Carla said, and Legislator Barr, you raised the issue of access to mental health treatment. The biggest barrier to access to mental health treatment is the availability of trained clinicians to provide it. We certainly need the digital access that Chair Boykin was talking about, because that is the way that most people do access mental health treatment today. But being able to have availability of clinicians is a problem that all mental health agencies like ours face. And it is one that we could collaborate on. I could see a wonderful program, for example, with our universities in the community, where you could do a tuition scholarship program in exchange for an agreement to work in the not-for-profit community for some period of time. It would avoid the issue that Legislator Borgia raised of paying salaries directly, but would in fact be a very valuable supplement to people's incomes effectively. And it would strengthen the community, strengthen the bonds with our colleges, and also something that we could target, strengthen the diversity and the cultural competence of the therapists that we recruited. So we would be very interested in working on these workforce issues, because very often people don't see the impact between the services and the workforce. And we all have unfortunate numbers of people who need the mental health treatment. That has become painfully obvious over these past years. We've done, I think, together, a wonderful job destigmatizing to some extent access to mental health treatment, making it more available. More people are willing to come for the treatment. But what an irony and a terrible tragedy for people to come forward, be willing finally after years to say they need help, and then not being able to get that help. And so we need to be able to do that, and having trained, culturally competent clinicians to be able to do that is critical. So thank you.
I'm going to ask Legislator Barr to respond to that, and then one other legislator, and then we'll go on to Meg Coffer from STEM Alliance.
Thank you so much for that suggestion, Seth. I think that's a great idea, and I'd be happy to work with you on that. And an extension of that, or a piece of that, is also going into high schools and talking to kids about, jobs in this field, because I think there's a lot of people out there who I think would be good at it and who would like to do it, who are already doing it with their peers. And, especially if we can offer some help with tuition or whatever, I think they would be, I think we could do a really good job recruiting people. So I am all in. Great idea.
Just let me say one thing, that a lot of schools do it. They probably not do it in here. My daughter has a doctorate in psychology, Furkoff, from the Bronx. She did an externship at St. Vincent's, White Plains Hospital. She was also in the Bronx. So we just need to bring that, because the only way to learn that business is to be in the field working. And now she's a doctor at Kings County Hospital. So
I have a question for you, but I'll wait till
I'm finished.
people will stick around after the formal presentation.
And then I'm going to go to the virtual audience.
Fantastic. My name is Meg Koifer. I'm with the STEM Alliance, and I'm very excited to hear the perspectives that everyone has on moving forward with projects that are very systemic based and not just reactive. As you had mentioned, we all support the idea of needing to get food to people or emergency shelter and things like that. But it's time, especially in a year where we have a slightly thicker opportunity, to look at systemic issues. And one of the projects that the STEM Alliance works on is digital equity. Our program provides a device, internet connectivity, and 15 hours of tech education to any low-income resident in the county. And we achieve that in partnership with many of the nonprofits that are represented here today. And my question to you is, when basically digital equity has been called a kind of super social determinant, because all of the things that you described, every single one of them, education, finding a house, job skills, workforce development, how about voting or participating in the census? All of these aspects of our lives are digitally driven, and we have over 50,000 people in Westchester County who are marginalized in an analog life. This program is slow, and it's small in its intimacy of the cohorts of the education that we provide, because a computer is a tool, it's not a teacher. We cannot just hand out devices. We cannot just provide low-cost, affordable internet. We need the education alongside, and we're the only ones providing the solution that way. And so my question is, how can we weave into these conversations the underlying notion of solving the problem of the digital divide? It has been raised by our business community, and the nonprofits that we partner with are ecstatic that we, the STEM Alliance, are able to bring this to their work. And so I want to know from the legislators how you see that baking into the work that you're prioritizing.
Just a little question.
Okay, I'll take the first stab at it. Everything you say is right. We do need to make access to the internet, broadband access, as universal as possible. When you think about you want to talk about things like revitalizing the economies in inner cities. You want to talk about revitalizing the economies in rural America. Call center jobs, but you need to have the broadband access to be able to access that employment. And then there's education and all of the other factors that broadband access would help. A lot of people did not notice the problem existed until COVID, and they saw what happened with kids in the schools. With something of this scale that involves infrastructure, it usually takes a certain amount of time for the movement, the need for movement, the imperative to percolate through government and to come up with the solutions. We have an intergovernment relations committee, which is chaired by Terry Clements, who could not be here today because she is a full-time teacher and obviously has someplace else she has to be today. This is going to have to be a partnership with all levels of government to help with this. And the thing is, there are two different problems. And depending on where you are, you may have either one problem or the other problem or both. One is the physical accessibility, which is more a rural problem. You have the issue of affordability, which is in our inner cities and also parts of rural America as well, which means that you have two different things that have to be dealt with at once. We need to be able to sit down with multiple levels of government in the same place, whether it's our municipal government. I know the city of Mount Vernon is also starting to look at this. The municipal, county, we need to bring in the state to talk about strategically how we move forward with this. And once we have a little bit of that conversation, we have some ideas crystallized from there, then we're going to have to bring the federal government on board because it is going to take hundreds of billions of dollars, at least to make sure that nationally speaking, this is all taken care of. And given the amount of money we're talking about, the federal government is going to have to be a partner.
Just one other quick thing. Part of the ARP money can be used for broadband. That's one of the uses that you can use for the ARP money. The other thing, of the new housing projects that come before that the county funds, you got to have broadband in there. You got to have the internet access in. So you've got the issue between the new and then you got the issue of trying to retrofit the old also. But we're very sensitive at the board. You come to a project that we're going to put money in, you're going to have broadband.
If I may?
Yeah.
So I have a comment that applies to you and all of you with regard to your programs and organizations. I see, as the chairman mentioned, we all send out e-newses once or twice a week and in a crisis, which seems like we've had a lot of more often. So I see my role, and I think the rest of us see our role very much as getting out correct information, communicating to everyone. So you let us know something about your programs, and we let everybody else know. Within our, I think I have over 7,000 addresses on my email list at this point. And secondly, we're all kind of connectors within our own communities. We know who the people are to talk with in municipal governments, school boards, Black churches in my district, very important. And there's a coding program being taught after school and over the summer in one of the churches that I spend a lot of time at. So, yeah, bombard us with information. We try to, call it out and curate and boil down and we get the word out both to the community and to our local leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a question that is a combination of a couple of questions that were put in the chat and a question that NPW has, and it relates to racial equity. We know that community-based organizations primarily run by people of color for people of color in their communities and tend to be smaller are extremely impactful. What are your thoughts in using ARPA funding to create a racial equity fund that would do a number of things? It would build the capacity of small community-based organizations in various ways. It would offer them long-term technical support and provide other opportunities for these organizations to, in some way, get a chance at advancing equity in their work and in our community.
I'll start there. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that really came clear during the pandemic was the inequities that were taking place in communities of color. We must address that, whether it be housing, healthcare, transportation, food insecurity, and to have many of the small communities, sometimes they're community-based, they're church-based, they're 1-2 people. We need to make sure we can find those and help them in partnership to work through some of these broadband issues, because a lot of times that's where it starts, with the 2, 3, 4 person, from the ground up. If they're located, we're willing to take a look at those kinds of things, because it is an issue that we must address. Anybody answer you? Okay.
So I have a question from Kathy Hallis about childcare. And that question is, Westchester has thousands of working families who don't qualify for the childcare subsidy, who cannot afford childcare. So we have requested 5.6 million to assist those families. But as important is the need to raise subsidy reimbursement for childcare businesses so that they can still staff vacancies and retain staff. What is the commitment to paying the childcare workforce more than the minimum wage?
Yes and yes, I guess. And Kathy knows that, yeah, I support her 100%, and to amplify and preach to the choir, I guess. There's the short to midterm important question of people wanting or needing to get back to work. And that supports this, but more importantly is the human infrastructure aspect of it. That's been proven scientifically that it's one of the biggest bangs for your buck that government gets. Putting a little bit of money, a little bit more money into daycare leads to long-term outcomes that are much better, that can be quantified in terms of fewer high school dropouts. Well, starting with fewer problems at the younger ages in school readiness, but then, fewer dropouts from high school, fewer early teen pregnancies, fewer people going to jail and prison. And we know we need to save more money in that area. So yeah, let's, get behind Kathy and push for these things. Thank you.
Let me say, we spent a lot of time doing the budget cycles on childcare. We've added additional money into last year's budget for childcare. I'm quite sure we'll be looking to do that this year once we see the county executive proposed budget. So, childcare is very important. I mean, clearly, people can't work if they don't have childcare, and not only childcare, quality childcare. And it does mean that we're going to have to look at the wages there.
Anyone else?
So I do think we all on the board recognize the importance of childcare and how that's a basic building block for, other things, people being able to work, for example. So I think that we're sort of open to all suggestions. I mean, I'm not in a position right this minute to commit to a specific amount for a specific item, but I certainly see that as a really important, like I said, building block to everything else. So we need to, and frankly, I've always said that childcare providers, whether they're in your home or whether it's in a childcare setting, are completely underpaid because there's nothing more important to us than our children. We all agree with that. So why would we, value the people who take care of them, put a value on the work that they do at, such a minimum amount. So I as a human service, it's just so critical that it should be valued higher. So I certainly support more money.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Jeanette?
Good morning. My name is Jeanette Gisbert. I'm the Executive Director at Volunteer New York. It's nice to see so many of you. I actually wanted to start by saying thank you for so generously and often sharing our volunteer opportunities in your communications. We really appreciate how you amplify what our community needs are. And it's not so much a question, but a statement in that I'm very happy to hear the conversations about how we continue to support the resource engine of our nonprofit community. There is no doubt that we need dollars in order to continue to attract and retain top talent so that we can continue to accomplish our mission in the way that our communities have come to expect us to. And I also just kind of want to lift up this idea of human capital. So not only our people, our professionals, but also volunteers, people who choose to get off the sidelines and support their community through volunteerism. And over again, we hear that the top two reasons why people do not volunteer is because they're not asked or because they don't know where to get started. And I want to elevate to you, I know that I'm preaching to the choir, but Westchester is a unique community in that we have a nonprofit that is in the business of asking people to volunteer every single day. And so as you think about that puzzle and how it is that you want to continue to support the nonprofit community, thinking about how we enhance the nonprofits community to mobilize that unpaid human capital, I hope will be part of the conversation. And a very easy way to do that is through supporting Volunteer New York, which you all do. And we are very proud of the partnerships that we have with hundreds of local nonprofits. So thank you.
Anybody want to comment on that?
So I'm surprised to hear that Legislator Marr only sends out a couple of emails a week, because I send out at least a couple a day, and I have to
Sometimes by the hour.
yeah. And sometimes it's like, okay, I
really
can't
long.
send another one. I know. But I will tell you, every single time I send one, and it could be God knows what, because they're all over the place, somebody out there says to me, thank you so much for this information. And nobody has said to me, stop sending me emails, which is what I thought when I first started this job, that, okay, I can't send too many. But people are very appreciative. And at least the people who check their email, which isn't everybody, they do appreciate it and they do read them. And I will continue to promote things that way.
And if you have things that we can look at and can promote, obviously we can't get and promoting businesses, et cetera. I mean, there's a fine line there, but we can do other things. So this morning at 7:25, the e-news went out on the ballot propositions, okay? And so all of you been offered that to go out. We sent them out, and we sent out so many, we have to time them. But that was the one that went out this morning.
Thank you. So I want to reiterate a few things, that themes that have been addressed today and some more that I'm seeing in the chat. And we do have, and we are advocating for funding for our smaller nonprofits. They have in many ways been systemically left out of the picture. And we need to find ways to work with them for them to be seen as viable partners and to strengthen their organizations. And if you feel as government that they are not yet there and there are things missing so they cannot be funded, let's talk about how we get these really impactful and important organizations funded. I'm going to stop by thanking everybody who's here for your work, thanking our legislators for everything you have done and continue to do, and thanking the Westchester Library System, Strategic Services for their sponsorship. And I'm actually going to hand the mic over to Chairman Boykin for some closing remarks, and then we can just hang out a little bit together again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you very much for, and I think, an informative conversation this morning. We're all in this together. If we work together in partnership, we make a better county for the people of Westchester County, and that is important. You saw how many legislators came this morning. That makes a statement of how much we're invested in working in partnership with each of you. So again, we've heard you. We look forward to getting additional information over the next several weeks. As I mentioned, the budget process is all ongoing all year, but we now in the crunch time of it. We want to hear from you. As you know, we do sit down with you, probably virtually this year, to look specifically at the needs and what can be done. We've got to look at the budget. You know, we are in a better place than we've been in a long period of time, thanks to the county executive and the legislature working together to right the ship. It's taken some time. We got the CARES money. We've got the ART money now that's being looked at and how we're going to use it. But we're here to work with you in partnership because, again, as I said in my opening comment, government cannot do it all. We have to work with you to provide for the people and the needs of the people in Westchester County. And over the last 18 months, it has shown government really does matter. And we have been there and we will continue to be there for the people of Westchester County and for the nonprofits of Westchester. So thank you very much. And I want to thank my colleagues for their wonderful comments this morning. Thank you.